It's now continuing our series of films in which we ask sons and daughters to tell us what it was like growing up with their famous mums and dads. Tonight, we look at one of our most popular entertainers.
Yes, over to Michele Monro on her father, Matt Monro.
Come with us, run with us. We're gonna change the world. You'll be amazed, so full of praise when we've rearranged your world.
My father, Matt Monro, is probably the most famous singing bus driver in the world. He was a professional singer for 30 years, but drove the bus for 13 weeks. But he's still known as the singing bus driver. The tag never left him.
From Russia with love.
We lived in Ealing nearly all our lives, and wherever my father went, he hankered for London. It was just in his blood. He was a true sort of Englishman.
Oh, I love the little things you say.
First time I remember seeing Dad on television was when he did the Eurovision Song Contest in 1964. I was only 5 years old then, and it was weird because I didn't understand what the television was and why Dad wasn't actually in the room, even though I could hear his voice. And I remember tapping on the screen and I couldn't work it out, and I got quite frustrated and left the room in disgust. I never saw him come second. I first remember seeing Dad at Talk of the Town, which was one of his favourite venues, and he walked on with this lone spotlight just lighting him, and he was very small in height, and yet there was this sort of giant on the stage, and everybody started applauding him. I thought, well, okay, that's my dad. But when I went backstage afterwards, it was when it really hit me that I had to share him, because I expected to go running straight to Daddy, and of course there were hordes of people wanting to go back and wish him well, and I had to wait my turn, if you like. And I realised, you know, I had to share him with the world. And that was a little bit of a tough lesson as a kid.
She walks like
As a child, I lived in America for just over a year. I was about 7, and can you imagine, you came home from school, went in the swimming pool. It was fantastic, but sadly, you know, Daddy was very British and he missed it greatly, and he missed recording with George Martin, of course Sir George now, and who he was with well before the Beatles.
Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away.
He did famously record Yesterday, and in fact he had the hit with it. But actually my favourite Beatles track was little later on, and he said, come on, let's go into the studio, come with me. And I'd never been to a recording studio. It was all hustle and bustle, and there was all these musicians, you know, tooting up and getting ready, and suddenly George Martin just tapped his baton and it just went really quiet, just like that. And Daddy beckoned me over, held my hand and sang Michele to me.
Michele, my belle.
And it was actually that cut that was pressed and released to the market. A very special moment. You don't forget memories like that. Family life was difficult to explain because Daddy wasn't there for 9 months out of every 12. He had to travel. And I missed him greatly because, you know, it's a long time to be without your father. I have stacks of telegrams for all the missed birthdays and special events. He missed Mummy greatly. I mean, they were joined at the hip. And it was very, very lonely for him.
Born free.
Drinking was a staple of an entertainer's life, and my father loved to kick back and socialise. The trouble was that as a child he'd had infective hepatitis, and it played havoc with his liver, and he was told to stop. But in fact he had major catastrophes in his life that put him back on the drink. Johnny Spencer's death was one of them, my dad's best friend, and his mother's death was another. And so all those sort of things pushed him back to going for the bottle at the end of the night.
'Cause you're
He was 54 when he died. But of course I am blessed to have cine footage, loads of photographs, and of course I've got my father's voice on record, which of course most families aren't lucky enough to have.
Oh, thanks so much to Michele, for making that brilliant film for us.